Good morning, everybody. You are tuned to Computers 2K now on the Nissan Communications Network. I'm Manuel, your host for the next couple of hours, along with Gal.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning and welcome back. And Nick is here.
Rocking back in the United States. Hello.
Yep.
Morning.
Our number is 919-518-9773, Computers 2K Voice on Skype. And today's show is made possible by vMix Software and is sponsored by Tom Sinclair of Live Streaming Gear.
How was your trip, Gal?
It was excellent.
Nice.
To be back. It was a good trip. Good to be back.
There's no place like home.
Yes. The comforts of home are amazing in getting me to forget that the past 3 weeks I was elsewhere. Good night's sleep is like, oh, it's only a day.
So did you look at the UPS?
UPS? Oh, I haven't.
You haven't done anything. Okay.
I have so many other
more
pressing and immediate things to look at that the UPS is gonna have to wait.
Okay. All right. That's fine. Be like that.
To trust me, the amount of stress on my head right now is I have like 10 very important, very urgent things to take care of. The UPS isn't even getting on that list. So
why are you here then?
Well, I still need to in my mind somehow, and it's good friends and some good conversation. Besides, this is part of the routine. This is what makes keeps me sane. So,
is it what season is it in Israel? Is it they're in fall, right?
Yeah,
no.
Same.
Sorry.
Climate is pretty much similar.
So then it's spring or fall?
No, spring.
It's spring over there. Okay.
Yeah. As long as you don't pass the equator, then you're at the same. And where Israel is pretty much the same altitude.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Same altitude, same attitude, same
attitude. Well, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't open up with Twitter and the news of the week. Elon Musk becoming the single largest individual shareholder in the company, picking up 9.2% of the company, which puts him above Vanguard, which is a market capital company. Prior to that, they were the largest individual shareholder, but obviously they're not an individual, they're a company. They had like 8.7% or something like that. So Musk now with almost 9.5% of the company. He was invited to become a board of director. And this comes just a few weeks after he put out some tweets saying that he was going to start his own social network.
Yeah.
And he's decided to pull the trigger and do a pretty big thing. So now we wait and see.
Hey, they were saying that he polled his followers whether or not Twitter is fair in their moderation, and 70%, 80% say no.
Yeah.
So
And
then he asked
you know,
if
and
a
it's-
new platform was needed. And he said
it's interesting when you ask him that, right? Because let's say Donald Trump asks his Twitter followers, "Is Twitter fair?" Right? You know the result you're going to get.
Yeah.
But Elon Musk has got incredible broad appeal. I mean, he's got 80 million followers on Twitter. On one side of the aisle, and painting with broad strokes, so understand that. But painting with broad strokes, you've got the environmental types that are all in on Tesla and stuff like that. So he's got that base. Then he's got some of the SpaceX stuff that is, there's not really politics in that. And then also he tweets out and is pretty outspoken against some more establishment stuff. So he pulls in some of the right wing people on that. So I think he's probably got a pretty good mix of followers in terms of political spectrum. And for 70% of that follower base to say that Twitter is not fair or is not, is not necessarily following through on some of their things that they claim they are, I think that's a pretty telling thing, at least from my vantage point.
It definitely is. I mean, there's no doubt. But when I started reading it, I was expecting to keep on reading and find out that he's put a couple of $1 million into some developers that will actually start a new Twitter kind of. And then you see that after a period, he just got into Twitter. So it makes sense, though. I mean, maybe he can fix it.
And we talked about in the pre-show, we were talking about other social networks, and could he pay and start his own social network? Sure. But there's not going to be broad appeal. There's already 1 million of them. There's Gab, there's Twitter, there's literally 1 million Mastodon instances for all of these different things. What's the other one besides Gab? Come on, Amnon, help me out.
I know.
Parlor.
And they all
Parlor and Gab, and then Twitter and everything on Mastodon. Trump's got his Truth Social.
GetTR,
yeah. Getter. Yeah, I forgot about Getter. There's just not. Yeah, great. He could invest a whole bunch of money into it, but it's not gonna happen. You're not gonna shut down Twitter. That's not gonna happen.
Right.
But that's the thing about social networks, right? It's never about the technology that runs them or the company that runs them that pulls the people in. That is a side effect. The social network is built by the social connections between the people, at least at the beginning, right? And when your foundation is politically driven, free speech driven, then the people that are interested in joining that, right? They're not going to get the relevant voice because you called it an echo chamber, right? When we talked before,
100%.
This is what happens at the beginning of these social networks. The only reason we have a Twitter or we have a Facebook or we have a Reddit, right, which they are built on these very diverse echo chambers that interact with each other, right? And so you need to build a lot of these smaller social networks and have them interconnect somehow, right? And Twitter and Facebook, they do it by, okay, I joined because a friend joined, and then my family joined, and then only after that, the interests of these other groups are starting to intersect. Reddit, on the other hand, is completely focused on the content, right? It's group based. So you go there because there are like-minded people on a subject that you want to look into. So Twitter and Facebook were completely personality based, right? A personal connection and stuff. And then you go and focus on the content and you mix and match. You show all of the interest that I have and at the beginning, sharing was not even considered as exposure, right? Today, every share that we do, we're always thinking, at least those who are, versatile and have been around for a while in these systems, you're always thinking, okay, what am I exposing about myself here, right? And to whom? And building a new platform, that won't bring the masses in just by, oh, there's this new platform. No, that's not enough. So him taking over Twitter and trying to affect that is probably the first interesting step in the history of social networks. I think that we're seeing, right? I mean, it's probably part of what Trump wanted to do when he was thinking of let's open that social network that he tried, right?
Truth, yeah.
Right. But this is the first time that somebody would probably have any effect on it. And it'll be interesting to see how. I think this is the only intersection of politics that can work, and it's through money, right? It's like, okay, we can take out this network and we can maybe try and show the world that steering it in a different way will make it change.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that is, and you just nailed it. Money. He's got, I mean, he literally bought $2.5 billion worth of Twitter stock. I mean, you're talking about such a copious amount of money to spend. And for him, by the way, you might think, oh, $2.5 billion, that's a lot. It's not when you're Elon Musk. It's nothing, literally. It's very interesting.
I always find it problematic when people say, oh, $1 million for Elon Musk is nothing. I mean, after all, this is a human being. It doesn't matter how much we want to see him otherwise, right?
Well, yeah, but let's be clear. He didn't have $2.5 billion in his bank account that he transferred. He sold assets and then transitioned them over to Twitter.
Exactly. That is a very precision operation. He probably has a team of advisors for giving him the pros and the cons, and he needs to make the decision on it. So, I mean, just by doing this, right, he's affecting the market share of Twitter on the stock market. He's affecting so much that it's a bold move. And we also know that the way the powers to be, when they control money, right, is usually about, okay, we can also, it's not going to be a loss, or not a big loss at least, right? Not in the short run and not in the long run. So it's a very bold move. That's why it's interesting.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. So I'm just looking at an article on the Hill that just got posted by a guy I follow, Joe Conch, and the headline is, Elon Musk's, who is a free speech absolutist, might be Twitter's ticket. And I think that's kind of what this comes down to is, as I mentioned earlier when we talked about, say it again.
You missed the most important word in maybe Trump's Twitter ticket.
Yeah, it might be.
Yeah.
So, but going back to what I mentioned earlier about his wide, Elon Musk's wide appeal, first of all, he's not a politician, and he's just got general broad appeal on what he does, but he is absolutely a free speech. That is one of the things that he has stood his ground on pretty strongly, is about being a free speech absolutist. John mentioning Twitter stock was up nearly 30% last week as a whole. So even if he decides this is a waste of time, he could sell all of his shares right now and make out like a bandit. I mean, you talk about a 30% gain in
a couple of days,
5 days.
Yeah.
It's pretty remarkable.
Yeah, but if he does that, if he does that, I think he can't, like technically, legally, because the moment he becomes a major shareholder, then any action he does, right? It's like inside trading and
Inside
stuff.
trading?
Like he needs to get permissions to do that. But yeah,
Yeah,
but I
there
guess
is some FTC stuff, and he's gotten in trouble before with some FTC stuff over tweets that he's
Announcements.
made about things like
about
Tesla.
stock. Yeah.
Yeah.
Remember that?
But after all of it, he doesn't seem to really care because he continues to do it, and the FTC, kind of fails to really hold him accountable because it's just a bad look for them. So.
It's not that. It's he does it without malice. He does it
Yeah.
not in order to steer the pot, but the pot it gets steers with everything he says anyway, right? So it's like, what do you want from me? He can't control people's reaction to what he says, and I think part of what he does, right, is he wants the systems in place to acknowledge that just by the fact that he does something, right, and there's a reaction to it, that he cannot make his decision based only on what the reaction would be. And I think that's part of his entire being, right? This the way he carries himself in this world of business. But and that's probably why he's one of the most interesting persons in the world right now. It's not just that he's rich; he is interesting, right? He's doing stuff, and he's very public about why he does stuff and how. So it's a fresh new perspective on power, and so it's interesting. Most powerful people, they keep to themselves, right? He's not one of those.
So now we wait and see.
Yep.
Definitely.
Did he buy any? Did he organize anything on our place, or he wasn't involved at all?
Tell us about our place.
Our place. That was first of all, I want to apologize. I missed last week's show. I actually intended to show up, but was distracted by my beautiful granddaughter. But it doesn't excuse it. And the reason I really wanted to join the show last week is what was happening between April 1st and April 4th. The show, I think, was on the 3rd. And so Reddit 5 years ago, 2017, on April 1st, without announcing this in advance, they created the subreddit Place. And that subreddit, when you went there, allowed you to put a pixel on a canvas, on a shared canvas, but it limited you to 1 pixel per 5 minutes. So if you want to create anything, any drawing, you're probably going to need more than 1 pixel. And with a limited amount of pixels, then and a shared canvas, then there is the whole concept of conquering territory, right? Just because I want to put a drawing, I have a plan to draw something, doesn't mean the rest of the world is going to allow me. And Reddit is, I think we can agree, Reddit is a very large community, and it's just by having the users that have access. That was 5 years ago, and it ran for 24 hours on April 1st. And it was a sensation. It was a very interesting experiment in social behavior, because you got groups of people who banded together to conquer a section on that white canvas. And there were other groups who were all about destructions. And obviously, there's some bots involved in some of this, right? Enough enough of the groups creating enough users, new users controlled by automation. But the mixture of all of that created something very, very unique and very special. And if you go and search for 2017's r/place, you'll see amazing videos. And a few days before April 1st, they announced, hey, remember 5 years ago we did that and it was a riot? They said, well, we're going to do it again, but this time we're going to do it for a whole, I think it was 4 days, but I might be wrong. It might be 3 days. I think 3 days. So what they did is they opened a canvas, a white blank canvas at midnight. I think it was Pacific time at midnight of April 1st. And it was exciting. First, there were a lot of, the most interesting thing is you give people creativity, and that was the main comment. You give people creativity, and the first thing they do is put on flags. So that was part of the main joke. There were a lot of flags, a lot of territories captured. And it has to do also with the size of these communities on Reddit, right? Because this is how they band together. They start at other subreddits and say, hey guys, we have this idea, come over and help us achieve that. Also, flags are very simple, right? Usually just 2 or 3 colors combination, very simplistic. Some of the flags, very simplistic geometry. And if you go and search for the time lapse for this r/place, you'll see that the first day has a lot of flags, and most of the conflicts are around those areas. Ukraine's flag covered a very substantial space at the beginning. Later on, there were concessions around that to allow more creativity. And there's a lot of discussions going on in the background. So if you followed it in real time, it was fantastic watching it. But then Reddit did something they did not announce in advance. And it was the reason of making it a multi-day event. After the first 24 hours, they doubled the area. So now you had, instead of just 1 cube, there was a rectangle on the size of 2 cubes. And it created a very interesting exchange between everyone, because, and this is my interpretation of watching all of this unfold in real time. But suddenly, instead of this constricted place, we still have a constricted place, but it's double in size. So there are territories that are no longer, you don't no longer need to fight around them, right? So now any fight on old territory is more like, because I don't like them, then I need this space to do something, right? And so suddenly a lot of action moved to completely different territories, and all of these battles, they got subdued, and it was interesting to watch. There were some streamers hoarding their crowds in order to either construct or destruct certain areas, and that was also fun watching the interaction. So this streamer live controlling, a slew of human drones, like thousands of people, sending them to a specific area to create or destroy something. And then when the attention of the streamer subdued, then that area got back to its old self approximately, with some new content. There were a lot of, because even though all that was created, it was a static image, right? Because there's change, there were also animations that were amazing. Watching that for these 3 days, which after the second day, after the duplication, they doubled the area again and ended with a square once more, just 4 times larger than the original square, right? And another influx of activity. But that one was, while it wasn't announced, it was anticipated because of the doubling of the first day. And it made, I don't know, it created something beautiful. I think the genius Reddit put into this can be summed up with what they did to finish this. And this was beautiful. So the way it worked is you went into our place, you entered the canvas, and then you were allowed to put a pixel. And when you were allowed to put the pixel, you got to choose a color. And when it reached to its end, then instead of just stopping everything, it allowed you to put only one color, and that was white. So at the end, you get this fade out event, right? Where a lot of people go in and put their white pixel. And at the beginning, it's this random association. Then there are some groups that still, with the void, with the whiteness, they manage to create something, and then it all became white. And the reason I'm so excited about this is human representation by art, basically. Human behavior representation by art, because the art isn't static, because it's a one-time event. Yes, it happened 5 years ago, and it might happen again next year, or in 5 years, or in 10 years. We don't know. I don't know if they're going to make it a yearly event, but it creates something unique, and it represents the current time. There was a beautiful, there were some very constant, I don't know if to call them memes, but very constant graphics since the beginning. One group of a musical game in Korean or Chinese named OSU, they got hold of a round area with the logo, and next to it was a Star Wars poster, which was very complex in its design, and yet the Star Wars community on Reddit managed to keep it pretty much static, but in cooperation with the OSU, which was a round icon, a round logo next to them, they created a battle where the OSU turned into the Death Star, and the poster shot at that Death Star to destruction, and then it came back, right? You get this human experience through something completely virtual, because people were just, they were ecstatic about the possibilities of this very simple weekend. It filled their day, and yet, while everything was virtual, this was really a human creation.
It kept a lot of people out of trouble.
What you?
It kept a lot of people out of trouble.
You can say that. I mean, I'll give you an example. Out of trouble in the real world, not necessarily trouble in the virtual world. Right?
Yeah.
Because I remember seeing a response by someone showing a screenshot of a conversation. This guy put a pixel where he thought he was putting it in the right place, adding to something, adding to an image. And then he practically get death threats, right? While there's not substantiated, I mean, nobody knows who is who, but like real vile comments of, how dare you, right, erase my pixel, which was something like random or something like that. So that's also part of the experience.
Yeah.
And I think it's
both sides.
Yeah. There was so much going on.
Now I wish I watched it.
Now, first of all, there is no problem going and revisiting this. What
I thought it turned white.
it turned white, but you have the complete video of it.
Oh, okay.
That,
Okay.
okay. And you can see this happening, which is great because you see 3 or 4 days worth in what, 3 minutes or something. Right?
Yeah, that will
You see
be
a
nice.
lot of movement, and you can focus on stuff. The most interesting, there was a lot most interesting. There were one very interesting thing is about 2 hours into this, one developer created a way of capturing all of this and collected all of the data. And the data is not just the image, it's also who is the user putting the pixel at a certain point. So you don't only get and he started creating time lapses out of it. So he has basically the full resolution image on that, missing a few hours. But he also the data set that he created allowed others to create compound cross sectioning of the data. And so there was a 3D map of the image itself with the pixels changing, but the height being the amount of activity on that pixel. So you get a completely new image out of that already. There's another aspect to the data, and it can only be seen in hindsight, and it's fantastic. So one of the things was the Canadian flag. The Canadian flag was target for a lot of malicious destruction.
Yeah, the thing that I read was that the Canadians could never draw the flag.
Right. It was really complicated for them because of the amount of attention, negative attention, right? They didn't get a chance to actually, they managed to get it right, precisely right, for a small amount of time. And that was part of like an ongoing joke the entire time. It was fantastic in itself. But the most interesting thing is that heat map, it's called, where you see activity based on location. The heat map for the Canadian flag is a perfect Canadian flag with a halo. It is even more beautiful than what people wanted to create. It was fantastic. So even though the Canadian group got basically bullied, right, the entire 3 days, the end result of analyzing it from a different vantage point of the data shows something even more beautiful than what they could have expected.
All right, let's stop with this now and put the link in the chat so people can go and see if you have it.
I'll put a few links so they can see something.
That'll be
the place to go basically for those who are just listening is to reddit.com/r/place. And that's where you can start your investigation and looking into it. Reddit made their own video of it, but it's rather low resolution. So I'll put in another. First of all, in that thread, one of the most commented the ones on the top, will probably be the one where there's a site showing the entire, not the entire, the one missing a few hours data set.
Put it in there and let people go and find out for themselves. Yeah. That'll be good.
That was one amazing thing that I really wanted to share while it was happening, and I'm sorry.
Oh well, it's okay. It's all right. I mean, like I said, like I told you a few times during these 3 weeks, you have more important things to do when you're there. So it was fine. All right. Let's switch to Nick. Do you have something you want?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. So here's something that I came across, and I said, Plex has an audacious plan to become the daily go-to app for everyone's streaming needs.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah. The Media Center app rolled out new universal search, watch list, and discovery features last Tuesday that are designed to help people find and keep track of all the shows and movies available across a growing universe of streaming services. In addition to universal search and universal watch list across multiple streaming services, as well as personal media, Plex is also launching a dedicated discovery section in its app that highlights new titles on Netflix and other services. So they're trying now to be the like a hub for everything that's happening in streaming.
It's as if they're trying to be a Roku.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's the thing that threw me. I mean, we haven't been here for 3 weeks and we haven't been using, and my Plex server is down. So I haven't even been accessing the Plex app. And we come home and I'm friends with another Plex server and Mati watches some content there. And we launch the app and it asks me to select my streaming services. I was like, what the hell is this? And yeah, and it's interesting because I think they're implementing something that I really wanted it to have about 3 years ago, and now I don't really care about it too much. But I'm actually sort of glad that they did it. It's an interesting approach.
It's very interesting.
What I am really unclear in is, does it mean that all I'll need is the Plex app to watch these streaming services on whatever device I'm on? Because if that's the case, I think that's a very good approach.
I don't know. I kind of doubt. I kind of doubt that. I mean, you're not going to be. They're not going to re-engineer the Netflix app in order to show you Netflix in the app. They're going to just branch out.
I'm not sure Netflix was on that list, but Disney Plus was on that list. I'll hook up the.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
I have Amazon Prime, so I'll hook up the Amazon Prime and see how that works. If the content is on Amazon Prime, will it send me? Will it just play it? Because I think it asks for. Oh wait, it didn't ask me for credentials. So yeah, that's interesting. But one thing I can tell you from traveling is I actually am annoyed with Amazon Prime.
Uh-oh.
So Amazon Prime, Israel as a content consumer, right, is usually a limited content consumer.
Every country.
Yeah, but I love. I mean, when you're comparing, let's say, Europe and the US, okay, then in Europe you won't get everything that the US has.
Right. Or vice versa.
Europe is such a large market of its own content, right, that you still get a lot of content, just different than the US. When it comes to Israel content creation-wise, compared to European countries and compared to China, compared to India, and compared to the US, is really, 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 really small.
Yeah.
And so the amount of content is usually for consuming is usually based on very prominent US Hollywood type production and some European production.
So what happened?
That's just, but so
Wait,
first of all, I'm surprised to see that Amazon Prime actually worked properly, like as an app, right? The Prime Video, let's say on the TV or whatever. It worked. It worked in English, didn't work in Hebrew, which is understandable because Hebrew isn't the market for Amazon Prime. What I was annoyed about is there was a banner saying, "I see you're traveling because I'm accessing the Amazon Prime content from a foreign country," and it says, "Just notice not everything is available," which I'm also okay with. But it's still on the catalog. It showed me everything that I'm watching and everything that is supposed to be available on Amazon Prime. But when I go and I start to play, it says this content isn't available in your region.
Mm.
So instead of allowing me to filter out what's unavailable and giving me only what I can access right now, right? They're giving me all of these teasing images and wasting my time.
Yeah.
Right? Like literally wasting my time. I want to watch something. What can I watch? You can't get that answer until you try everything. And after failing 3 times, okay, I'm not watching Amazon Prime today. Right? It's like they lost me because they didn't filter out the content that was relevant. There was one thing maybe that was relevant, but I didn't get even to that because I couldn't. Some of the Amazon Prime content, the stuff that they completely own that worked, not all of it, surprisingly. So even that is restricted in some way.
Isn't this something that you can bypass with a VPN?
I mean, theoretically, yes, but I'll need to put the VPN on the router because it's the TV. So
Okay.
it's not like
Yeah.
I was on my son-in-law's.
Yeah. Okay.
Our son's home. I didn't want to mess with his router for that, right? I mean, if I was controlling the router, yeah, I'll probably have done it. Routed it through home or something. But it was just annoying, right? Now, on the other hand, Netflix, you only get what is available, and what is available is different.
So it's
Let's say
filtered. If you click on
for
something, you're going to be able to see it.
You are only seeing what is available from your point of consuming.
So the index that you're looking, at is what's available, really available.
Right. Now, if I've watched that show back home, right, even though it's available here, and it's funny because when you're working in Netflix actually has a Hebrew interface. And when you're working in the Hebrew interface, all of the posters are also translated to Hebrew. And it's funny. So, I know this show, but I'm not used to seeing the Hebrew title on it and stuff like that, right? But yeah, there the experience is flawless. I know I'm looking for something that is available in the US and I can't find it. Okay, that's because it's region restricted and it's not available here. Not a big deal, right? But it's not wasting my time on the interface.
So did you use Plex over there? Nick, did you want to say something?
Nope. I'm good.
Did you use the Plex interface?
I told you because just before I left, my Plex server crashed.
I know, but you can.
So I think
but you can use the Plex app on the computer.
Yeah, I know, but there wasn't anything that I wanted from Plex, so I didn't even launch.
All right.
Yeah, when the Plex server is on, they use. I gave access to my son's.
Yeah, but that's from your content. I was wondering if
I'm their content provider on Plex, so they're not looking into.
But what I was going to ask is if all the content that's in our Plex here, forget about when you have a Plex
talking about
server,
the live TV and stuff.
The live TV, all that stuff is available over there too.
I haven't checked, but I can.
Okay. No, it's fine.
For next week, it's an interesting question.
All right, Nick, you ready?
Anything interesting, I'll share.
All right, Nick, you ready for specials?
What's a special?
A special is somebody like you.
Oh, that's offensive. But yeah, absolutely. Let's get this ball rolling. I found a quite a funny opening picture. And it revolved around personal data. So there's a virus is stealing this guy's personal data. So he's looking to free antivirus software to help. And the free antivirus software comes to the rescue. And lo and behold, all that does is steal his personal data as well. So he's kind of up the creek with no paddle. Personal data on both sides being stolen by both the virus and by the free antivirus software. I thought that was pretty funny. That's System 32 Comics. His things are hilarious. Most of them are very explicit, but very funny. All right, let's start off this morning. And by the way, I told the guys in the pre-show, specials was just very odd this week. I started yesterday afternoon trying to put some stuff together, and there's just not a lot of computers and tech stuff, so we're a little scattered this morning. But we're rocking and rolling. Here's the first one. This is over at Amazon. This is a Gigabyte laptop. Now, you probably think of Gigabyte as a motherboard company and kind of a peripheral company, but they do make some of their own computers, and a lot of these, of course, are built by somebody else and branded by Gigabyte. This is their Gigabyte U4UD, which is a 14-inch full HD laptop. It's got the latest 11th generation i7. It's an i7 1195G7. It does have the Intel Iris graphics, so this is not the new graphics yet, but it's still Intel Iris. A 512 gigabyte PCIe SSD. It's got 16 gigs of RAM, so this is a powerful computer. You can do a lot with this. Wi-Fi 6. The display is 1920 by 1080. It's a full IPS display, and it is on sale for $683. Normally, you'll spend with tax over $1,000 on this computer. You save about 30% over at Amazon. And by the way, you can if you open the specials, you can click the links, and I've got them all hyperlinked there. Moving on from that, we've got another computer. This one is over at Best Buy, and this is a Microsoft Surface laptop. This is a 13.5-inch screen, touch screen, because it is a Surface. It's obviously not spec'd anywhere near the Gigabyte, but it's still a Surface laptop. i5, 11th generation i5, 8 gigabytes of RAM, and a 512 gigabyte solid state drive. This computer is normally $1,300, and it's on sale right now for $950. Save $350 on that. This does end today. Actually, excuse me, it ends tomorrow. All the Best Buy deals end on April the 11th. So you got to buy it before the end of the day today to get access to them. So that's over at Best Buy. Moving back over to Amazon, there is a USB-C hub, for especially if you're purchasing a new laptop. You're probably going to be quite limited on your ports. You might only have one or two at the most USB-A type ports, and probably two USB-Cs. So here's a Sebret port over here, and it's USB-C, obviously, in from the computer. You plug that in. And on the output side of it, you get a lot of cool stuff. You get you get one USB 3.0 type A port and two USB 2.0 ports. You also get an HDMI, so you can connect a display, and another type C for power. So what you could do is, many of these laptops, the new ones, will charge with USB-C. So instead of having to use one USB-C port for power and another for your dock, you can use this device, plug it right into a USB-C port, hook the power through it. You get an extra display port and 3 USB ports on this. So pretty cool device. It's normally $15. If you click the link, there's a promo code through Slick Deals where you can get it for $12, just under $12. So you save a couple of bucks, but it's a really cool device, especially if you're looking at upgrading to a new laptop. Speaking of upgrading, might be time to go ahead and get a connection for you to hook up some stuff in your car. Well, here is a Bestech car power inverter. There's a couple of different models that are available and on sale. They go all the way from a 150 watt unit to a 500 watt unit. If you click that link, you'll find a link to Slick Deals. You can research all of those and figure out which works best for whatever your use case is. That's over at Amazon. Moving on, a portable power charger. This is cool, and it kind of falls into the USB-C conversation we were just having. This is an Insignia, which is Best Buy's brand. This is also on sale just through the end of the day today. So make sure you, if you're going to go pick this up, you do that. This is a USB Type-C charger. So this is a 26,800 milliamp, 80 watt power brick, portable power supply. And you can actually charge a USB-C laptop with this. Now, obviously, it's not going to charge it as many times as it would charge a phone, but you can absolutely use and run a laptop on this. You can also, of course, charge smartphones and tablets, but because the USB-C port will output 65 plus watts, you can use this to connect a USB-C laptop to it and get some extra juice without having to plug in. So this is on sale. This is normally $70, and you can find it on sale over at Best Buy this morning for $40. That's over at Best Buy. We talk a lot about upgrading your media and Plex and some of these other alternatives to streaming solutions. And that means you're probably going to need some hard drive space to do that. Western Digital, and they've been running this sale for a couple of weeks, and I've continued to include it because it's so relevant. Here's a 16 terabyte. Now, Amnon remembers the days when 16 megabyte drives are $300. But this is a 16 terabyte WD Red NAS hard drive. This is normally $550. It's on sale for $299. They also have their Gold Enterprise drive as well on sale, and they've got a whole bunch of different sizes. For example, you can get a 2 terabyte WD NAS drive for just $84. So there's a whole bunch of different sales that Western Digital is running on both their Enterprise SATA drives and their NAS drives. So click the link in the specials or just go to westerndigital.com and check those out. All right, on to page number 2. Taking a look at another Best Buy deal. This, again, just runs through the end of the day today. This is their Insignia brand television. This is a 58-inch Class F3 Series LED 4K smart TV. Now, Best Buy's smart TVs have the Fire TV built right into them. So it's Fire TV built in by default. Looking at the television and some of the other things that it has available, it's got a couple of ports on it, including a Ethernet port, obviously, because it is a smart TV. You might want to hook it up via Ethernet. It also has standard AV in. So you can also connect a composite or component device to it as well, which is pretty cool. An optical output for audio, an antenna input, 3 HDMI ports. One of them is using ARC, a headphone jack, and a USB. So for a pretty inexpensive TV, which this one is coming in at $369, it's normally $480. You do get a lot of ports. A lot of these cheaper televisions you'll find only have maybe 2 HDMIs and maybe a USB. But this one has a full feature. Plus, it's got the smart TV built into it through Amazon Fire. So you can pick that up, save $110 on that over at Best Buy, and that is valid through the end of the day today. Well, if you buy a new TV, you're probably going to need a mount. And Harbor Freight is running their they call it their Black Friday sale in the middle of the year that they do. They do a couple of these big sales a year, and they've got 3 different mounts on sale. This special runs through the end of the day is today as well. Their special wraps up this weekend when they close. You can get 3 different mounts, a 17 to 48 inch, or rather 17 to 42 inch swivel TV wall mount, $9.99 on that. You can get a larger 37 inch to 70 inch. This is just a tilt mount, so you mount it flat to the wall. No swivel, no tilt, but you can move it up and down. You get that. It's just $14.99. And then if you're looking for a full motion mount, it comes off of the wall. You can pull the TV, turn it from left to right. They've got a 37 inch to 80 inch full TV wall mount. It's normally $50 on sale for $39.99. Those are over at Harbor Freight. I believe those are just in-store only, so be advised of that. And we talk about smart stuff a lot, and one of the interesting ways and one of the more inexpensive ways to get into this is actually through Philips. And if you're looking to maybe automate and update your lighting system, Philips has got a Hue kit. This is the Hue White kit. This is not the full RGB, but this is the Hue White starter kit. that is available over at Best Buy. This is normally an $80 kit, and you might be saying, well, $80 for 2 light bulbs is ridiculous. But it comes with the Hue hub, which once you have the hub, you can add a whole bunch of other devices and lights, and they're all relatively inexpensive. So if you're looking for a cheap way to get into the Philips ecosystem with their lights, this is a pretty inexpensive way to do it. 2 lights, both white, controllable, and the hub for just $32. And I'll pause here and Gal, this is a pretty good deal for. I mean, pretty much you could spend. I think the hub itself is like $40. So to get 2 lights and the hub for $32 is a pretty good price.
I think, yeah, even if all you need is the lights, it's still a good deal. They usually are not available on the cheap if you want to expand your existing one, and then you can give the hub to someone. But yeah, by the way, even if you're not into the Philips Hue ecosystem, you can still buy this. And these are basically Zigbee bulbs. So if you have a Zigbee controller, then you can use that as well.
Oh, so these lights are not individually controllable. They don't have built-in.
No, that's why you need the hub.
Okay.
Well, yes and no.
Or some sort of hub.
Yeah. So you need some sort of Zigbee control in order to control their luminous and on-off.
Okay.
Okay. The hub is the Zigbee controller by default for them, and I mean, as Zigbee controller hub goes, they are excellent. Like they're very well designed. They're very well functioning. There is only one other company that I can like blanket say Zigbee. They do Zigbee better, and that's IKEA.
Okay. All right. All right, Nick.
So you can check that out over at Best Buy. I don't believe this is not part of their clearance sale. This is just as supplies last. So if you're going to act on it, though, go ahead, because once they run out, the price is going to go back up. And then finally, this was a late arrival this morning over at Walmart. Here is an Asus VivoBook Pro 14. It's got an OLED display, 14-inch laptop. Does not have because it's a 14-inch, it does not have the numpad on the side of it. It's a 10 keyless for the keyboard. This has got an 11th gen Core i5. It's an 11th gen 1130H. It's got Intel Iris Xe graphics, 8 gigabytes of RAM, a 256 gigabyte SSD. It's a beautiful blue color. I know everybody wants that. Normally $750 over at Walmart. It's on sale this morning for $599. So save a couple of $100 on that. This is not available in store. This is a shipping device, so ship to you or ship to store, and you can check that out over at Walmart. 8 gigabytes of RAM on this computer.
Interesting that it's Windows 10.
Yeah, this is the reason it's probably on sale is because it's Windows 10, and this is their last generation of laptop. So we've seen these the past couple of weeks. We've seen a lot of these computers that now obviously it has the free upgrade to Windows 11, but they're just trying to get some of these older SKUs likely out of there. But it does have Thunderbolt on it, plus USB 3.2, and the trackpad on this is actually addressable. There's some shortcuts and stuff that exist on the trackpad. I didn't delve all that much into it, but this looks like a pretty neat computer. $599 for a system like this isn't too bad. It's relatively slim, so you can check it out over at Walmart. And that is specials for this Sunday, April the 10th. And a quick note for anybody that is a Harbor Freight fan, as I mentioned, they're running their Spring Black Friday through the end of the day today. So if you maybe need a one-time tool or something weird like that, you can go ahead and head over to your Harbor Freight and pick some of that stuff up today.
You mean you can go there and just buy a one-item thing?
Well, I went there to buy one item and left with nearly $200 worth of crap. So, buyer beware, but they've got a lot of stuff on sale there in store. So you might want to check that out if you're, again, need. Harbor Freight is great for one-time tools. You need a breaker bar. Yeah, you can go to Home Depot or Napa and pay a crazy amount of money for it, or you can go to Harbor Freight, get a Pittsburgh Automotive breaker bar for $6.
Yep.
And unless you're a mechanic, who cares how long it lasts? You're not using a breaker bar day in and day out.
Right.
They've got some of their lifts on sale, some of their pump floor jack lifts that were a pretty good deal as well. Plus, literally everything else: angle grinders, welders, pressure washers, jackhammers. Pretty much their whole store is on sale. So yeah, if you're looking for something to do this afternoon, maybe go spend a couple $100 at Harbor Freight.
And I was gonna make a comment about the little hub, and I got Hannah this one. It's a duct tape. It's like the one that you put in there that had the USB for
Yep.
her Surface. It's a USB-C, but this one has one HDMI, 3 USB 3.0, and an Ethernet also on the tip of the thing. Now, it wasn't $12. It was like $23, but it all depends what you need. And works nice. Works really nice. So it's when you go there and you look, I mean, this is very important for the latest, like Nick said, for the latest laptops. I don't understand. I mean, you look at the laptop, at the Surface, there is more room to put another USB and this and that, but they just chose not to put it. Now I don't know what's on the inside.
There's room, but there's also, you say there's room because there's ports on the outside of the computer.
Now, I'm saying there's blank spaces that they could put another port.
Hold on. There's blank on the outside of the computer. What's right behind that?
Right. That's what I say. I don't know what's on the inside.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, and they packed these things right in. So even though there's points on the bezel where you say, oh, there could be another USB port.
Yeah.
There's something right on the inside of it. And USB.
Absolutely.
Look at a standard. I got one.
But yeah, it only has one USB and one USB-C.
I mean, you look at a standard USB Type A port. This whole thing has to go inside of the computer, so you need this much clearance to have the port on the inside of the computer.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and it just makes sense. I mean, it's not ideal to not have all of those ports directly built into the computer, but with the cheapness of these hubs,
right,
and the availability of them, and let's be honest. You go and pull up a laptop like you, Amnon. If you have a laptop from, let's just say 2000 or 2002 or 2003, it's going to have a 9-pin serial on it, probably.
Right.
It's going to have all of these ports that are nice to have, but realistically are never used.
Yeah.
Who the hell was using a 9-pin serial port on a laptop? Maybe every once in a while you'd connect it, but now with adapters, you don't need it. You need power. It's got Bluetooth. So if you're buying a mouse, you're in my opinion, if you're getting a laptop, you're stupid not to get a Bluetooth mouse. There's no reason to get a USB mouse. You don't really need it.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And those hubs years ago were not reliable.
Well, they were USB 1.0, and
today
the throughput was very limited.
They're great. I mean,
there's one thing that has changed. The reason all of these special docking solutions are USB-C based is because along with the USB-C connection is just part of a larger, more complex standard around that connector that includes display port. I think it's called Display Link or something like that. You do not
Mhm.
need any special drivers here. It's not software based. It is completely hardware based. It's chip based. The chip behind that USB-C connector integrates whatever that hub supplies as part of the motherboard.
Mhm.
The throughput is high. It is effective. It's not so. Yeah, we are. If back in the days, every single manufacturer of laptops would create a special uh, um, docking port, right? That is no longer the case. I mean, Lenovo today, their docking solutions is 100% USB-C based, and these competitors, basically, right? I mean, they're practically no names at this point, right? They're starting off trying to appeal to a larger market. They're doing it based on these standards that have been established, and they're helping drive the cost very low. In the past, the hub that you held in your hand, Amnon, something like that as a docking station that would provide reliable display and all of that, right? That would go. I mean, the minimum would be $200. You
Easy.
bought it for
Yeah.
22,
Yeah.
right? So that's the revolution here, is the standard behind the USB-C connector.
Mhm.
And yes, that means they can. It might be a bit more beefy on the internal side of the machine, right, of the laptop, but one is enough to supply you with everything that you need. And let's face it, when you want to hook up something to a laptop, you want to hook up on a single point because you want that laptop to be portable, right? You still want it to be able to disconnect from everything and just take the machine and go with it. And this makes it so. So this is awesome.
Yeah. All right. And Microsoft is bringing tabs to the File Explorer in Windows 11 soon. Hello. Alongside the refreshed design that makes it easier to quickly access folders or make favorite files. Favorite files. The highly requested tabs feature was first spotted in Windows 11 test builds last month, and now Microsoft is making it official at a hybrid work event for Windows 11. The other thing that we didn't talk about, I don't think, is the fact that they're also bringing ads to File Explorer. Some people have
I'm not.
begun.
I mean, I'm not too worried about that because I know that I'll probably find the first ad blocker I can and install it.
Uh,
But it's going to annoy a lot of people, and I hate
yeah,
that. I
and a lot of
really hate
people
it.
are already annoyed by it.
One thing I can say, I mean, in the past when we've talked about Windows 11 and urged people to, if you're ready to upgrade, upgrade. One of the things that held me back was the immovable eye candy that they created. The taskbar must be on the bottom, and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Uh, there are enough hacks. I mean, I'm working on this machine on it's Windows 11. There are enough hacks that allows you to customize the UI uh, to be substantially under your control. But it's not as pretty as working with Windows 10 and dragging something to the side, right? So I hope that part of the ongoing refresher that they are going through is they'll figure out that part. But if you're holding out like me when I was holding out just because of the interface, know that using some basic tools that are available today, I mean, obviously not basic, they're very complex in the terms of what they're touching, and they're probably not going to make your system like fully compatible with 100% of things, but uh, with enough tweaking, you can make it at least work more to your liking than before. So know that that's available.
All right. And
but speaking of Windows, I got a tip here that probably most of our audience don't know about. A very simple one. If you're running Windows 10 or Windows 11, Windows 10, I think 20H4 or something like that, or one of uh, one of the 2020 versions introduced the clipboard manager. And I'm guessing most of the people don't even know that exists. And to activate it is very simple. It's just instead of Control V to paste, try hitting the Windows key and V. That will ask you if you want to enable clipboard management, and then you will start. It will start the clipboard manager. Now, in Windows 11, that clipboard manager got a huge revamp, and it actually can sync things with, let's say, your mobile phone if you have the U phone installed and stuff like that. So your clipboard can be synchronized across machines as long as you're using the same account. Now, keep in mind, if you're copy pasting passwords, it will also do that for those. Okay, so be aware of it. So if you do not trust yourself or whoever using your computer to be safe with this, then don't activate it, right? Just don't use it. But know that this clipboard management feature is baked into the OS, and it works pretty well. So if you were looking for something like this, definitely use it.
all right. Nick, you have something?
No, sir.
Okay. If you're a user of MailChimp,
I'm editing a MailChimp email as we speak.
really? Well,
Yeah.
email marketing giant MailChimp has confirmed a data breach after malicious hackers compromised an internal company tool to gain access to customer accounts. In a statement given to TechCrunch, MailChimp said the company became aware of the intrusion on March 26 after it had identified a malicious actor accessing a tool used by the company's customer support and account administration team. Access was gained following a successful social engineering attack, a type of attack that exploits human error and uses manipulation techniques to gain private information, access, or valuable. We acted swiftly to address the situation by terminating access for the compromised employee accounts and took steps to prevent additional employees from being affected. I would recommend, if you have MailChimp that you're using, then just change your password. But
Wait, were passwords leaked?
yeah, password do leak, but I mean it leaked.
No, were they leaked?
Well, that's what they were saying, that they were used by a tool to gain access to customer accounts. So I would think that that's.
But wasn't this on the back end? It sounds like it was used from support accounts to access customer.
Maybe
accounts, unless I understood it.
If I had a MailChimp, I would go and change the password anyway, because you know, you don't know.
Fortunately, MailChimp's got requires two-factor authentication, so the the concern is relatively limited. Hopefully,
low. Okay, that's fine. Yeah,
but it sounds like it was an issue on the back end from what you just described.
It does sound. It does. Yeah, it was on the back end.
Some old employees or something that still had active accounts, and somebody was able to get access to those, and then poke around in the back.
What they did is that social. What did they call it?
OAuth?
Social engineering attack. I mean, you know, they call you, they talk to somebody, they say I'm such and such and this and that, and then you get a piece of information. You call again, you get somebody else, you ask for another. It's a technique that a lot of them are using. A lot of these bad actors, And finally, they put together the plan how to do this. So here's that thing we were talking about earlier before the show. NeoWin notes growing support for the very efficient, potent, royalty-free video codec AV1, including Microsoft adding of support for hardware acceleration of AV1 on Windows. But AV1 even turned up in Intel's announcement this week of the Arc A series, a new line of discrete GPUs. And that's from NeoWin. It says Intel has been quick to respond, and the company has become the first such GPU hardware vendor to have full AV1 support on its newly launched Arc GPUs. So they are talking about discrete GPUs here. While AMD and NVIDIA both offer AV1 decoding with their newest GPUs, neither have support for the AV1 encoding. Intel says that hardware encoding of AV1 on its new Arc Plus is 50 times faster than those based on software-only solution. It also adds that the efficiency of AV1 encode with Arc is 20% better compared to HEVC. With this feature, Intel hopes to potentially capture at least some of the streaming and video editing market that's based on users who are looking for a more robust AV1 encoding solution compared to CPU-based software approaches. So that's going to be interesting, and I'm wondering when probably the next version of vMix maybe will have that. We'll see.
Yeah, but do you have the hardware?
I mean, they put it also in software.
No, well, yes and no.
I'm trying to compare. First of all, software-based AV1 I think is faster than 246, 264. Sorry,
264, 265.
Yeah, but no. So I'm not. I don't think it's faster than 265. That's the thing.
Okay.
And 265 is hard on software-based encoding, right? It takes
I don't know.
much CPU. 265 is fantastic, right? It's the it's what's it called? The holy grail right now of video codecs. But the problem is, right? There's royalty around it,
Mm-hmm.
not royalty free, right? And it is hardware intensive when you're doing it on CPU.
Yeah.
What it
Okay.
has compared to AV1, right? It's been around since 2004. So the hardware that we're using today has been incorporated, let's say, up until 2015, that's 12 years or something. So anything that we're talking 2015 plus is probably has support for HEVC for 265. So AV1 is a new contender. It's been around just a few years. I think 2015 is when they started talking about it. And it's royalty free, which makes it very, very attractive. But it's going to take time, right? I mean, the RTX 30s, they've included AV1 in them. But that's also, we're talking 2020. So very new hardware, and we all know what happened 2020 until now with GPUs, right? They were basically unapproachable, very expensive. So, yeah, Intel announcing they're going to put AV1 into their stuff is fantastic, but it's going to be affecting us only in approximately, my guess, 8 to 10 years, when AV1 will be the rave, and by that time we'll already start talking about whatever new development is going to show up.
AV2.
We don't know. I mean, we don't know if it's going to come from the same consortium
Yeah.
that does the open stuff, or it's going to come from the royalty-based solutions. I mean, it's clear that there's a lot of money, right? And I'm just trying to imagine the amount of royalties Netflix are paying for using HEVC, right? It's something that these organizations are gonna want to look at uh, throwing away. That's part of the appeal of DisplayPorts, right? Compared to HDMI. DisplayPort is royalty free while HDMI isn't. So just producing hardware, right, with DisplayPort versus HDMI allows them to cut costs on licensing. So it's important that all of this, very important.
Yeah.
It's just something we don't see, but it means so much, right, for so many companies.
Windows 11 may be the latest operating system for Microsoft.
Yeah,
But-
that's what they said for Windows 10.
But last Wednesday was about Windows 3.1. It was the birthday of the classic OS, marking 30 years since the launch on April 6, 1992. And when I read this, I could see we had a meeting of the Triangle Computer Society over at RTI, and there was somebody there from Microsoft talking about the new Windows 3.1. Amazing.
Did Windows 3.1 with work groups
For work group.
together?
Yeah.
Because that's how they call it.
Yeah. Windows 3.1 for
remember.
work group. Yeah. I mean, yeah, Windows 3.0, I don't think lasted but about a week.
No, Windows 3.0 was around a long time.
Back then, actually, if I remember correctly, Microsoft, I don't know when Microsoft split that, but in the beginning, there was 2.0 was MS-DOS, 2.1 was PC-DOS.
PC-DOS is IBM.
Yeah.
MS-DOS, Microsoft.
Yeah. And I don't know when it changed. I don't know if 3.0 again
were these experiments. I mean, you can't call them a product. Whoever paid for them, I'm sorry for them, right? But it's like,
well, no, they came like you could buy 2.0 or 2.1, and everybody went for the 2.1 because it was MS-DOS. And then I don't know if 3.0 and 3.1 were the same situation. It's been so long, I don't know. But anyway, it's interesting that we came a long way.
Yep.
Yeah. All right. Here's something that you work with pies, and I know Nick does. I mean, I have one, but you did everything on it. Since its launch, the Raspberry Pi OS and most operating systems based on it has shipped with a default Pi user account, making it simpler to boot up a Pi and start working without needing to hook up the device to a monitor or go through a multi-step setup process. But as of last week, that's changing. New installs of the Raspberry Pi OS are shedding that default user account for both security and regulatory reasons. Raspberry Pi Foundation software engineer Simon Long explains the thinking in this blog post where he says the Pi user account could potentially make a brute force attack slightly easier. And in response to this, some countries are now introducing legislation to forbid any internet-connected device from having default login credentials. That's what he wrote. and this move will improve the Pi operating system's security. And that is so true. And in my years as a service provider, people always ask me, why do I change the like when we installed WordPress for a customer? Normally, WordPress is your domain name / WP-admin, and you get into the thing and you put admin or administrator. I changed that. I always change that. I call it something else. And this is almost like having two passwords. Your login is sort of like cryptic. It's not really cryptic, but it's cryptic as far as bots are attacking. And then you have a password also. And I think this is what they were talking about. Now, if you know that you can log in and invoke the login, and right away you know what the username is, all you have to fight for then is the password, because you already know the username. When you have that also different, then you're making it so much harder. And I guess I didn't know that the Pi had a default one.
But hold on a second. WordPress doesn't pick a default username. You have to set up a username when you create a WordPress. When you do a WordPress install,
and
you have
I think
to type in a username.
I think it defaults to administrator, and it gives
It doesn't
you
default.
password.
It doesn't default to anything. You have to put it in.
Okay.
I think no. I think
The-
well, it doesn't really.
I don't know. Maybe now they don't. But
Default usernames, and that's okay. I don't have a problem with it. But I think default passwords, right? Yeah.
no, default password is ridiculous. But
Yeah,
default,
we
even
don't-
I mean,
never-
we have those sites that works for web where you go to the back end and it had the default username. There's a bunch of different other products. Maybe they changed this time by this point. Nick, you may be right, but it's built in my head. When you set up, you just give it your own, and you should do it in everything. Every time you give yourself a username or set up something with a username, don't go for the default if there is such a thing. But
just out, just like a curiosity thing.
Yeah.
Those no longer has it still ships with a default guest user and a default administrator user.
What is?
But there are these Windows.
Okay.
Windows 10,
Oh.
Windows 11, Windows. But they are disabled by default today. Right? So the reason they're included is because if they are completely missing, then there is software that is going to break, that looks for those usernames or their SIDs or whatever, their internal system IDs. But by default, the local administrator is not something you can use anymore. The username named administrator, neither is the username guest. They're there, but they're disabled. So the same goes for everything.
Well, it's also that those default accounts that you mentioned are also ways for you to recover access to your, for some reason, if you get locked out of your Windows account and you're not on a domain, that is the tried and true way to get into your account, is to boot up to a Windows CD that loads up CMD, then enable the administrator account, log in, and change your password. That's one of the great tales of Windows, is getting logged back into your account.
Okay. And Twitter,
but back to the Pi though, because this is an interesting one.
Okay.
So I've actually got a Raspberry Pi that I use to run a web browser that I look at Home Assistant on, and I do use the default account. I'm not necessarily sure. I think it's a good thing for them to disable that by default.
It's not going to have, they said that it's not going to have a default username.
Well,
It's
and
when
I
you
think that's the
started.
problem, because a lot of people set up their Raspberry Pi headless.
Yeah.
You plug it into the network, you plug in a power cable, and then you can either SSH into it or VNC or whatever. I don't know if VNC or some sort of GUI viewer is available by default, and you're able to get into the device and then set it up that way. Now, the big difference when you're talking about WordPress versus a Raspberry Pi is you're connecting your Raspberry Pi to your home internet connection.
Mm-hmm.
So unless you have no firewall and every single port on your network forwarded externally, there's no external access to that device. You have to set that up separately. So it's not necessarily that I'm not saying you were comparing it, Amnon, but
Yeah.
it's not like you're setting up a service with the username and password as your default login. This is an internal device that if you want to get remote access to, there are multiple steps to go through. And if you're going to go through those steps, you're going to change your default username and password. But for me, who uses this computer literally just to view a web browser, I'm glad I didn't have to set up an account. It boots up to the username it just boots up into the account automatically. It's perfect.
It's still going to do that, Nick. So the way they actually addressed it in the announcement. So the way they're dealing with it is, instead of just having some defaults and you run the system, it launches the first time you install it, whether headless or not. It launches into this setup mode where you reach out to it over a web browser if it's headless, right? And you set up the defaults, and then it's set up. And that's the way it has become. It pretty much has become the standard for headless devices, for embedded devices. If you think of, a Wise webcam, right? You hook it up. It needs some method to connect to your Wi-Fi, and the way it does it is by you hooking up to its Wi-Fi hotspot, setting it up for the first time, right? And from that point forward, it's no longer going to be exposing that Wi-Fi hotspot unless you go into a setup mode. So they're making the OS more robust, and it sounds like it worked for them previously, but now we got a better way of doing it, and it's not going to change a lot. We're talking about the setup, and so now we need another step in the setup. That's all.
So you're saying now there's now a web interface that you can go to set it up?
So I'm trying to understand,
because that's new. I've never seen
removing the default user account has necessitated a few other changes to the OS and its tools. The Raspberry Pi OS now boots into a dedicated setup mode the first time you start it up, instead of running the setup wizard as an app in the normal desktop environment. So they streamlined the setup process. If in the past you would run the setup remotely, right? Now it's already launched into setup.
Gotcha.
Let's see. It prompts and all that. To aid with setup, the wizard can now pair Bluetooth keyboards and mice without requiring you to plug into a USB accessory first. So that's probably part of it. And when they're talking about headless, you can create a username and password before you write your operating system with the Pi Imager tool. So you'll create an Imager tool, right? An image on the SD card that already has the credentials that you need.
Perfect. So, that's fine.
Yeah. So, it's not we're taking this out and screw you. It's we're taking this out and we're providing these alternative solutions, which we think are going to make it better and safer.
Okay. That is, as long as it still gives you the option to run it headless without having to go through a bunch of nonsense, which it sounds like they've done, then I'm all in.
I wonder if this is a direct response. California has a legislation about not allowing default passwords.
Hmm.
Uh, uh, I don't know if they're the first ones. I just remember we talked about it. I think it's 2019 or 2020 when it when they issued it. I don't know if it's taken into effect yet, but this probably is some sort of making sure, right, that they can continue operation in places where legislation like this are bound to appear because they make so much sense, and you cannot allow just common sense of engineers, because engineers' common sense is very, very different than security common sense, right? And so, yeah, I'm all for changes like these. They might make um, the initial approach, the initial use, a bit tougher, but good, right? That's the way it should be. So definitely, let's make it a norm.
So, Nick, I don't know what's the difference between the way that you get in and the way that I get into the. Oh, my Home Assistant is running on the Pi, but I have to log in, put the
Well, we're not
username
talking
and a
about
password.
you're talking about logging into a
To the- yeah,
service. We're
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about logging into the OS.
That's right. Yeah. Okay.
And not
Yeah.
only that, so HasOS, Home Assistant OS, is an OS based on that. And when you boot it up, right, the first thing you do is you get a web interface that where you set up the default credentials for the first time. And after that, that interface doesn't show up anymore. So
Okay.
if it's just hooked up for the first time, it's exposed. But once it's set up, right, it's safe.
Makes sense.
Yep.
All right. And listen to what Twitter is planning on doing. Twitter has announced that it is working on an edit button. The idea is that you'll be able to fix any typos or errors in a tweet without sacrificing any replies, retweets, or likes that it's already accrued. So you're going to be able to change your tweet after the fact.
Yeah, you can do it in any of your other system. Why not do it here?
Yeah.
I would, it would be interesting how they set it up. I don't remember how it's done in Facebook, but in most systems, you can actually see past edits.
That's the
So
only way that this works because
in Twitter for large, I agree.
Yeah.
Either time limit or see the history.
yeah, I personally don't think they should add an edit button, but that's kind of not really my choice. So
No, I'm all for edit button, because if you, I mean, typos are a thing. They're not going away. They're not going away, right?
yeah, and I've typoed plenty of tweets. So you delete it and then repost it, or just reply to the tweet with the change of the typo.
Right, but then you, I mean, Twitter is terrible when it comes to threads. So
The Twitter app is terrible. Other services do it a lot better.
the Twitter app is actually a lot better than just going to the website. The website is horrifying. Okay, but yeah, I did find out that when I'm sharing a tweet with someone who doesn't have the Twitter app, and they say, "So what's the big deal?" And he's reading a completely different thread than I am, basically. So yeah, so threading in Twitter is just it's horrible. Okay, and if something gets traction and then somebody points out a typo, right? You don't really want to delete the one with the typo, but it's bad form. It's annoying. So having a way to do that and to keep track of it. So as long as they're going to keep track of every change and show those changes, not just mark it as edited or something like that, I'm all for it. Any interface, even if it's just limited to 140, what is it, 280 characters right now?
270, I think.
270. Yeah, yeah. Keep that. That's fine.
Yeah. All right. Linux. Fedora 37 development team is considering dropping support for non-UEFI BIOS.
That's rough.
I mean,
That's good, but that's rough.
that means you're not going to be able to install it on older machines
Yeah.
like a lot of people are doing today.
Yeah, but you're talking about Fedora. Fedora
Yeah.
is.
But if they're doing it, others are going to do it. They're going to follow. I mean, Fedora is.
I think Fedora here is following suit and not leading the pack at all. So Fedora is the open source. Not all of it is
From
open source, but
Red
the
Hat.
community build for CentOS, right?
I thought it was Red Hat.
For Red Hat. Yeah, CentOS is Red Hat.
Oh,
Fedora. Let me make sure.
Fedora was Fedora, and then they changed the name to Red Hat Linux, and they said Fedora is going to be the open, the free. I didn't.
The free, yeah, is the community stuff for Red Hat. Red Hat made at the beginning there was Red Hat Linux,
Okay.
right? And Red Hat, when they shifted to their focus to enterprise solutions,
Right.
I mean they were always focused on enterprise solutions, but they wanted to make sure that their work, everything that the corporate is doing, is enterprise targeted. Fedora is the open source community that deals with the upstream Red Hat enterprise.
So where is CentOS falling in here?
I think CentOS does not exist anymore, but I might.
No, Cent still exists.
So CentOS is also, it's just a fork, I think, as well, right?
All right. No, well, anyway.
Yeah, it's always complex when it comes to to Linux and business. Community enterprise. CentOS is it's a fork. It's no longer part. I mean, I'm pretty sure there's some communication with Red Hat, but it forked out of Red Hat, but it's no longer managed by Red Hat. And I think Fedora is like the community managed by Red Hat. It's still a community project, but so yeah, as I said, I don't think it's Red Hat following suit. It's more Fedora following suit to others, other solutions. You see it more and more with the new stuff. I think Pop OS, which is Ubuntu based, can only do UEFI. There's a lot of others. I don't remember what Raspberry Pi's OS, how it works, because it's targeting a different architecture, right? But that's also based on Debian. And I think, we're gonna see old school BIOS being dropped more and more, and we'll probably see these BIOS solutions supported as like add-ons and third-party groups dealing just with that, because it's going to be legacy stuff most of the time, right? I mean, we stopped EUFI starting being like mainstream 2014, I think. It's about time. It's not like this is news. This is old news and it's finally the big players that are doing this.
All right.
Windows still support legacy BIOS? I think Windows 11 does not.
Windows
right?
11, I don't know if it does.
Yeah.
All right. You want to talk censoring? Amazon will block and flag employee posts on a planned internal messaging app that contains keywords pertaining to labor unions, according to an Internet internal company documents reviewed by The Intercept. An automatic word monitor would also block a variety of terms that could represent potential critique of Amazon's working conditions like slave labor, prison, and plantation, as well as restrooms, presumably related to reports of Amazon employees relieving themselves in bottles to meet punishing quotas. That is amazing.
Yeah, I don't know how truthful.
I don't know.
That.
I mean, I'm sure that exists, and I'm sure there is a manager or maybe a group of managers in Amazon that treat their employees like this because they're such a huge company. Some corruptions will appear, but yeah, come on. But about that word monitoring thing,
Yeah.
you know what that's gonna? I mean, it's not gonna stop the discussion. So,
No, of course not.
yeah. So I think we're gonna see more and more alternative spelling of stuff, and more and more newspeak based on. It's a bit like, I mean, it's funny how the more advanced we get with these technologies and monitoring and stuff, how much closer to the 1984 George Orwellian version of the world we're
Yeah.
getting with newspeak. Right there in the book, newspeak was a way of controlling speech. Here it's backwards a bit. It's like, okay, well, let's monitor speech, so people are going to create this newspeak in order to be able to talk about the controversial issues without the system being able to stop them immediately, at least, right? So yeah, nuts. It's not the right way of dealing with it. I get it. I mean, it's their platform, it's their internal platform they created for employees. But if you're not willing to allow your employees open discussion, then just shut down the platform or make its use very, very specific. It's like, I mean, it's yours, but I don't know. It's not the right way.
They can make the rules.
Or they can allow their employees to, you know, to talk about this and coordinate and unionize. Or I'm not sure unionization is the solution either, right? But they definitely need a way of organization, and they definitely need a way to have open conversation with the employer. And yes, sometimes place demands, but yeah, it's a weird
We'll
world.
see. I mean, it's just interesting. Now, here's something else, and I did not hear from anybody that it actually happened to, but it says that from last week that the BBC reported Friday that Facebook users around the world have been waking up to find themselves locked out of their accounts for no apparent reason. The message many received reads, "Your Facebook account has been disabled because it did not follow our community standards. The decision can't be reversed." It appeared in a pop-up window with the title, "We cannot review the decision to disable your account." One user told the BBC there was no warning or explanation given. While the message appeared on April 1st, the lockouts were real, confirmed by on Twitter by Facebook Policy Communications Director Andy Stone. Late Friday, he tweeted that earlier today, a technical issue caused a small number of people to have trouble accessing Facebook. We resolved the issue as quickly as possible for everyone who was impacted, and we apologize for any inconvenience. Numerous Twitter users then replied, complaining that their own accounts had been and remained disabled. "This happened to my father a couple of weeks ago, and we are desperate to get his account back," one Twitter user told the Facebook community communication official while trying to explain the glitch impact. And he was saying that his father has cancer and keep his friends up to date on what's going on. But interesting that a glitch will disable just some. It's like you were maybe at the edge of being shut down, or I don't know. But
It might
apparently,
be. I mean, they have this Facebook Protect thing they've been talking about, a way of protecting the accounts from malicious activity.
okay,
There's an article that says Facebook has been sending warning to some users telling them to activate Facebook Protect or they will be locked out of their account.
interesting.
Yeah, this has been going on for weeks, and you have to enable.
So I'm guessing it has to do with that and implementation of that, and probably some sort of testing in implementing that, just hitting production users just way too wide.
Yeah, but the
It
message
sounds like a technical glitch, right? It doesn't sound like something that they intended that these user it'll happen to them.
but to put in such a thing that this decision can't be reversed.
Well, I
Wow.
mean, yeah, I agree, but then again, as I said, engineering common sense has nothing to do with security common sense and with human common sense.
Yeah.
It sounds like somebody messed up and they'll fix it eventually. Maybe, I don't know.
Eventually, maybe is right. Eventually, maybe.
It's free for it. Yeah, it's a free for users. Maybe, maybe, right? It's like I understand, but I mean, at this point, I'm not surprised. I have been using. I'll tell you where I'm coming from with this. I've been using Google. What Google coined Google for applications. Back in I don't even remember when. The first time Google provided solutions for your own domain. So instead of running Gmail on gmail.com, you could have your own domain and manage it with a bunch of users. And they had a free tier at the beginning, which was 50 users for free.
Okay.
This was revolutionary because no other service was like that. I mean, today you have Office 365 and stuff. This was the beginning, the beginning of that. They were looking at Salesforce back then. Salesforce were just, bringing in the money, and they said that is a piece of the pie that they want as well. And the solutions around that was they just came up with docs and sheets and all of that. Anyway, I got a free. I said that's great. My last name is my domain name, and I said, yeah, this is how I can manage this easily for my family. Fantastic. And I been using it since. But come the end of May, I either need to shut down everything or start paying.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to pay for this service that I got for free. The thing is, I can't migrate easily to a free Gmail account for those users either. And I'm not going to at this point, just because I don't want to be free anymore.
Zoho.
Free out of them, right? So yeah. So right now I've leased a VPS. I'm gonna run my own my own mail there, or at least have a mail backup there and use another mail service or something.
I would I'd highly recommend if you're looking to move, and I don't know what the pricing is for how many users you have. But Zoho,
yeah,
Zoho might be a solution.
They're not. Yeah, they're not good for me.
Okay.
I checked. Yeah, I checked already. I've checked all of the services that provide mail services,
Mhm.
and none of them are what I need. I'd rather.
May I ask what
They're gonna
you're
lock
needing?
me in. What's that?
May I ask what you're what you need that makes those services not obtainable?
First of all, they're all very limited in the one thing that Google does is they unlimit you with the size of the mailbox. I mean, they give you a 15 gigabyte limit, which is basically unlimited. Uh, and some of those users that I need to move, they have more than 8 or 7 or 10 gigabytes. If I'm going to try to move them to a different system, a paid system, then when I'm talking about these mailbox sizes, the price per mailbox I'm going to pay, it's too high for what it needs. And does it need to be filtered out and cleaned out? Yes, but I don't have time to deal with it. So I need to migrate first and then deal with different solutions.
Gotcha.
And that's why I've been looking at hosting my own mail server. But one of the caveats of hosting your own mail servers is running it on a dynamic IP at home doesn't make any sense. So it's not a bandwidth thing; it's an allocation thing. So I need a VPS, a very cheap VPS that can at least deal with the way it's presented to the world. Then I can decide whether I'm running it locally, internally, and just passing everything through there, or running everything there. So yeah, but right now, one of the most burning things on my head is to deal with my free email that is no longer free, right? uh, I, uh, I've been, it's a task I've been putting off for years. Like I wanted to deal with this before I hit it. I never actually thought Google would do this to me, right? To anyone, that they would chop down somebody that was already on a free service. I mean, it's not like they're closing the service for everyone. They're closing the service just for those who are free. So yeah, disappointed, annoyed, stressed out a bit dealing with this. Facebook is a free service. They can do whatever they want. They can lock out users. They can, and without any repercussion, they are the complete masters of their platform. And I think that's one of the reasons we don't really like them, right? When we realize what that means. So it doesn't matter if it's Google, it's Facebook. If it's free, the free is no longer free, right? At the beginning, it was exciting. It was opportunity. It was look what we can do. Look how much money they're making. Apparently, that's not enough, and that that free is no longer available. And so yeah, I've grown up a bit, and I'm no longer going to accept free, even if you shove it up my throat. I'm going to look for another version of free, which is freeing myself for a small amount, but something that makes sense.
All right. It's time. Anything else we want to add here? Nick?
Nope.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. Thanks, Nick. Thank Gal. And good morning, Kathy, Hannah, Nabil, Mac, Norm, Katie and Dina, Arlington, Micha, Eleanor, Sarid. Thanks, everybody, for tuning to Computers 2K Now. We hope you enjoyed and maybe learned something from our time together. Remember to practice safe computing. Back up your hard drive and update your virus scanner. We'll be back here next Sunday at 9, but you can always reach us at computers2know.com. Again, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9 a.m. Nick is on Wilmington's 980 The Wave with his, and on 107.9 FM with his daily news show. You can listen to recordings at nickcraig.com, or if you want to listen to it live and you're not around there, just tell your Echo device to play 980 The Wave. And Tuesday, 7 p.m., Nick and Brian do the Infection podcast, and that's a survival game podcast show and gaming news on Twitch. So at 7 o'clock in the evening, Tuesdays, just go to twitch.tv/infection podcast and listen to that. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.